Well, welcome, Jeff. Very glad to have you here with us at St. Louis University Center of Supply Chain Excellence. Thanks for your time. It means a lot to us. If you could please introduce yourself and to the audience, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, well, Vineet, first of all, it's my pleasure and an honor to be here. So thank you for inviting me today. Yeah, so my background really started my career in transportation, kind of centered around the LTL part of that industry was in sales, and that led me to kind of my first entrepreneurial endeavor. So I started a logistics company. I'll date myself here, but a little bit back in early 2000s. Primarily did get well. It only did government business. Ran that for a few years, and I sold that. I started another one right after that focused more on the commercial line of business. Um, Had that for probably good 7 8 years. I sold that, and that was kind of what from a technical part of view that led around the time there was a lot of web-based TMS application, and that's really what that company became was a seller of that type of
Hmm.
software. Um, so that kind of after I sold that, I went to work at Worldwide as a senior manager and leadership position over just about every region of their global order ops. I did have a small exit for 2 to 3 years where I went and took a president role of a leadership of a company, a logistics company, excuse me, in Utah.
Hmm.
Uh, and then in 2020, came back into kind of the IT side of Worldwide,
Hmm.
uh, which now I am kind of the director of IT for supply chain.
Wonderful. Wow, you have a ton of experience. Uh, as an entrepreneur as well as working for large organizations. That's wonderful. I think your perspective will be so useful to all our community members and students and industry partners. Um, I'm sure you're busy. So thank you again. And uh, a question to you is, if you can shed some light on the skills and the talents you seek right now, as I know, I'm sure worldwide is growing leaps and bounds. So your perspective on skills and the talents that are required in today's world would be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you ever approach, that kind of realm around people and the skills and the talents that you're wanting to bring into your organization, it first starts with core values. Um, and so those have to be identified. I'm very lucky to be part of Worldwide Technology that has a very established and strong culture that supports those core values. But even if I back up to my own organizations, that was always something we did to identify, who we are and who we want to bring into the organization. And, you could be the most talented person out there. But if your core values are not aligned, it probably won't be a fulfilling experience for either party. So, kind of enough said with that. But it starts with the core values, and then not probably like most organizations, communication skills is a big one.
Yep.
You got to be able to interact with not just partners and vendors, but internally and be able to communicate and share your ideas. I would say probably the next big bucket is problem solving. This is supply chain.
Yeah.
Um, there's one thing supply chain isn't, it's smooth, so there's always challenges. So to have that kind of mindset and skill to be somewhat analytical and critical thinking to solve those problems is a big one. Being able to analyze data to make informed decisions, and then really just I would say bring it into the organization a foundational proficiency, whether that is supply chain or whether that is on the IT side. After that, we can always teach what, because every company is a little bit unique and that ecosystem is different. But those foundational skills, uh,
Yes.
pertinent to IT or supply chain are pretty critical. And then I'll end with two.
Yeah.
Um, the next one would be flexibility and
Mm.
adaptability. You know, you're going to have to change, and so you may have the idea of being in one role, but it may take two or three steps to get there. So, you know, and you have to be open to those changes that come into the corporation to really bring value to the corporation and the company and the organization. So, you know, being adaptable and flexible means a lot. And then the last thing I would say, which, you know, we even talked about before, was understanding your personal passion, cause, or purpose.
Yeah.
If identified, then you can really identify that with the right organization, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of synergy and a lot of success off of that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very good advice, especially for our students that are looking for a job sooner or later and going to graduate from our programs. Um, yes, core values, problem solving skills, um, flexibility, these are all very important because we live in a dynamic world. Things change, you know, and it's important to have these attributes and skills to be able to adapt and be successful. So
Yeah.
that's wonderful. What are your thoughts on recruiting and retaining highly
Yeah.
skilled and successful individuals in organizations?
Yeah, we'll take that in two parts: recruiting, getting them here, and then being able to, you know, retain that talent. Recruiting is, you know, I think it sounds, if you're not involved, like a pretty simplistic thing. Like, hey, everyone's looking for the job, but it's more than that. It's finding the right person at the right time in the right location, and you know, I will say the pandemic and introducing technology like we're on today, making it more available, has broadened the scope of which we can, you know, go out and recruit talent. We're not, it doesn't have to be local talent. You don't have to be in the office. So that has has changed the game. Now it's just for, not for worldwide, it's for
Yeah,
every company. So, you know, the marketplace is open in that respect. And so that's a new dynamic. I think, you know, recruiters are still working on in this part of the business. Again, I think you have platforms like LinkedIn that are still valuable. Um, you know, creating networks of people is probably going to always be the best.
yeah,
And then I'm a big advocate of aligning our organizations with organizations like yourselves, where
mm,
there's a relationship, where there's a discussion about what is needed,
yeah,
and you know, that way, you know, it gives, when I talked before about, you know, the foundational proficiency in an area, we
yeah.
know that's taken care of. You know, so those are probably from the recruiting side. The retaining of talent, you know, I'm a big believer in connections, and everyone is not treated the same. You know, there's the core values that guide us, but really to retain the right talent, you need to challenge them, and you really need to care for them. You
Yes,
really understand what work means to them, what success means to them, how is the job fulfilling. And again, that doesn't mean there's not accountability or there's not challenges. Those absolutely come, but they come from a point of sincerity. Uh,
yes,
and then you guys, you know, we partner together to move them into the ideal spot is where our needs intersect with their passion. If I can do that or get as close to that center point, everyone everyone feels that, and that's really the goal of retaining. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm underscoring the value of benefits and compensation. Those are going to be required.
for sure. Definitely. I mean, that is required. And most companies offer somewhat similar packages. Some offer better than the others. Of course, Worldwide has tremendous package, and I know that. And Worldwide goes above and beyond to take care of their employees. But as you mentioned, I think um, finding that intersection where the organization's needs and the passion of individuals meet is the
Yeah.
sweet spot. And that is great. That's wonderful.
And sorry if I interrupted you
Of
there.
course, no, please.
And I will say, and again, part of Worldwide Technology and the organization, that I am an honor to work for is that comes from the top. Um, and that is not just something that just happens. And if it does, that's great, but it's probably in pockets. The wonderful thing about our organization is it is deep inside of the organization. It is from the top down, and when you have people care for people like that, um, you end up getting long-term engaged and fulfilled employees.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know how passionate the executive leadership team is at Worldwide about taking care of people and core values. Lived it for 14 years. So uh, yeah, it makes Worldwide a unique organization in that sense.
Yeah, well, one of the byproducts of that, I think what it does is it allows the employee to focus on getting better, on innovation. It's removing any sense of fear around, wow, I gotta lie low. I gotta make sure I don't mess up. I
Mhm.
gotta, so when you have that type of support, and the support is not just today, it's through the process.
Right.
And so when you have that level of support and care, I mean, it energizes the employees to, solve the impossible, to do the next step, to go the next level. And that's what becomes inspiring because you just end up seeing that in pockets and areas over and over, day after day.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 That makes a lot of sense. And that is so true. That is so true. Um, um, Today's supply chain, as you know, is full of surprises and challenges. Um, you know, in your opinion, what are the significant hurdles that the organizations are facing right now when it comes to supply chain?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we're not alone in this, but I think every organization, at least prudent organization, is trying to introduce some level of cost control.
Mm,
We see this not just at the corporate level, we see it even at our personal levels, that we have
yeah,
goods and services that have, with inflation have really rose over the year. And that cost is a real cost. And so that limits sometimes, other things you can invest in and other things you can do. So,
yeah,
being able to introduce cost measures and trying to keep costs relatively stable is always going to be kind of top of mind. Another kind of area I think that you always have to be very forward thinking on is security.
mm,
uh, as you look around, and sometimes it's not just your data, it's customers'
yeah,
data. There's a lot of information out
mhm,
there, data age, and being able to protect that and secure it is the utmost importance. Vineet, as I think and I look around, I mean, there's going to always be disruptions.
yeah,
They're not always foretold exactly when and where they're going to happen. And that's, again, coming into people that have critical thinking and are flexible and open to the challenges and problem solving really help,
yeah,
you know, it doesn't make it go away, but it mitigates it to a reasonable level that you can get through it, for the best of your customers and
yeah,
the least for your own organization. So that's always going to be there. Um, Having data captured and available, we see that a lot with AI and all these other technologies. If you don't have the data,
mm,
not too much you can do, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think even in supply chain, even more so now than a year ago, it
Mm,
was, hey, what what data points can we capture? You
right.
know, how can we then leverage that? And we could probably talk about that next. But those are probably the things that come to the top of mind when you're talking high level supply chain challenges and hurdles in today's environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that brings us to the next topic, right? How do you think leaders can leverage AI to solve some of the problems? And what are the challenges, right? I mean, we all are talking about AI. It's kind of become the buzzword. Honestly, the ground reality is something else. And so, really would like to get your perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, if we could go a day where I don't hear the letters AI, I don't know if that's possible anymore. I think on the surface, everyone has an idea that AI solves almost every problem. Um, but there was a study just released, I think it was this week, where 91% of Gen AI projects never see production. So
Wow.
I mean, that's a big number. So really what that just tells us is there's a lot of unknowns around that technology. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of upside. And we're learning and cultivating that every day, almost by the day. You see different
Yeah.
things come up. But you need to be guarded and you need to understand that there's still, risk involved in that because of the unknown. So you may start something with a Gen AI kind of perspective, but it may not make it through. And so when you're looking at that, I just think you have to be aware of if that's the right solution or not to chase right now, given what the technology and where it is today and where it could possibly be going.
Yeah.
Automation in supply chain is probably the primary go-to for speed and efficiency and scalability of what routine processes and tasks can we automate and put those types of controls in. um, those are a couple of the big ones. I think if we go to the innovative side of that, it'd be interesting to see what Vision AI brings us, and can it
Mm,
read and labels and help with receiving projects, and how do we do some of those unique technologies?
mm,
You see AI solving a lot of the customer experience problems. You have a lot of chatbots out there. You can
sure.
get information, in a conversational format, relatively quickly and pretty real-time accurate. So I think those are some of the big interesting areas in AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the number you mentioned is staggering. Wow. That's and
But
that
see, that's what's really, Vineet, great about programs like yours and at SLU and the Center of Excellence, because what you guys are cultivating allows students at least to stay even with, maybe hopefully even a little bit ahead of some of this leading technology. Because if you're not even or ahead, it gets difficult where to apply it.
right.
And so, you could probably, comment on this more than me sometimes, but the correct thing is really understanding the capability of what that technology can do. And then internally, do you have the data and the processes to be able to see that through?
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you know, data is the key. The quality of data is the key. Having all the right attributes in your data set is the key. Um, and before you can successfully implement AI and Gen AI, we got to make sure that we have all the necessary data and the data is clean and we have enough data for AI to actually do its job. Um, and that is the hard part. I mean, a lot of organizations sometimes don't um, really pay as much attention as it is required when it comes to data and data management.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, again, to reference, this whole space is so new.
Hmm. Yeah.
you may not even understand some of the data points necessary to make it successful when you take on the project or begin that. So, it is really an iterative basis to get something developed that is actually useful
Mm,
and and to your point, the data collection. I mean, you could probably make an argument that companies collect more data in a single year than they probably did the last 15 years combined nowadays. And so,
yes.
you just extrapolate that out. Where does that lead us in 10 years and the amount of data that organizations have at their disposal? And again, calling upon security to make sure that data is,
Mm,
not only accessible, right, but also protected and secure.
yes, exactly. Very valid points. Very, very insightful points. Thank you, Jeff. Um, one important question, and uh, this is for the students of St. Louis University. Uh, any advice for them to
Yeah.
prepare and be ready to be successful in their first job?
Yeah, well, I'd say if I think through this, the first two things, I think they're in the right place doing the right things. And that is one, getting their education and with an organization and an environment that supports not just today, but what that space will be in the future. And so that they should feel good about that. And then because of that, they're building those technical, analytical, and supply chain skills to be able to be a value add when they get to those organizations. Because at the end of the day, when you're hired into the organization, the goal is that you bring value. And having that type of educational experience goes a long way to bring in value, almost immediately when you come into an organization.
Mm,
Um, Anytime you can take that educational experience and apply it to real world experience,
mm,
incredibly invaluable. So, I would encourage all your students to get out there, whether they do internships or volunteer work or side opportunities, just to take the applications and the ideas they're learning and see how they translate in different environments and different scenarios is
mm.
very, very, I think, valuable. And then be able to speak to that also, um, becomes very marketable when you're interviewing. Building a network
Yeah.
of people that can support you because it really is a journey.
Yes,
It's
it is.
not a sprint, and you're always going to need guidance and support
Mm,
every milestone along the way. So the more people you can add into your network that can give you their perspective,
yeah.
they can help guide you. Um, that could be very, very valuable to you. And then to the end, I would stay hungry, stay passionate,
Mm,
and stay coachable.
wow. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is great advice. I'm sure students will benefit from it tremendously. And that is actually so true. I mean, and this is a very practical advice in my opinion. Couldn't have said it any better. So thank you so much, Jeff.
My pleasure.
Anything else that you would like to say while we end this interview? I just want to provide you the opportunity to.
I think in closing, I again want to thank you for inviting me
Of
to
course.
this.
Thank you.
I take it as an honor to sit with you. And supply chain and IT, those things together, there's a lot of opportunity out
Mm,
there.
yeah.
It is exciting space. You take both of those things away from today's world, and boy, are there some voids out there. So, I would encourage people to keep the same passion they have today in those areas
Mm,
of their career because it is going to evolve and change. Always be there to support someone and, enjoy the journey,
yeah.
ups and the downs.
Ups and the downs, exactly. Wow, that's wonderful, Jeff. Was so good to have you in this session. Very informative, educative, and helpful to the community. Um, thank you for spending your valuable time, and hope to stay in touch with you and you know, uh, and help you in any way, shape, or form that our center can help.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll stay connected. Thank you, Vineet.
Thank you.